You are sitting in a room full of people and someone is talking to you. Their mouth is moving. Words are coming out, but you are not really hearing them. You are nodding. You are making the right facial expressions. You are performing attention, but inside your head you are somewhere else entirely. You are thinking about the book you started reading. The idea that has been circling your mind for days. The question you cannot stop asking yourself. The internal world that is so much more interesting, so much more real than whatever conversation is happening in front of you. And you feel guilty about this. You tell yourself you should be present. You should care more about what people are saying. You should be better at small talk, at social engagement, at participating in the world the way everyone else seems to so effortlessly. You watch other people and they seem plugged in. They seem genuinely interested in the mundane details of daily life. They can spend an hour talking about nothing and appear fulfilled by it. But you cannot do it. You cannot pretend that surface-level interaction matters when your mind is wrestling with deeper questions. You cannot force yourself to care about things that feel meaningless when there is so much inside you that feels urgent, important, alive. So you withdraw. You ignore. You tune out, and the world tells you this is a problem. The world tells you that you are antisocial, that you are disconnected, that you are missing out on life by living so much inside your own head. But what if the world is wrong? What if your withdrawal is not weakness but wisdom? What if ignoring the noise is not avoidance but protection? What if your tendency to retreat into your inner world is not a flaw but the very thing that makes you capable of depth, of insight, of original thought? Here is what nobody tells you about ignoring the world. It is not always escapism. Sometimes it is self-preservation. Sometimes it is the only way to protect something essential inside you from being drowned out by the constant noise of other people's expectations, other people's opinions, other people's definitions of what your life should look like. Freud understood this better than almost anyone. He spent his career exploring the unconscious, the inner world that most people ignore because they are too busy responding to external demands. And what he discovered was revolutionary. He discovered that the most important parts of ourselves, the parts that drive our behavior and shape our desires and determine our destiny, those parts live in the depths. Not on the surface, not in the social performance, not in the acceptable mask we show the world, but underneath, in the territory that only becomes accessible when we stop paying so much attention to what is happening outside us and start paying attention to what is happening inside us. Your tendency to ignore the world, to withdraw from social demands, to live primarily in your own mind, that is not a bug. That is a feature. That is your psyche protecting your capacity for depth. That is your unconscious refusing to let the essential parts of you be colonized by external noise. That is your soul insisting that you have something more important to do than perform normalcy for people who will never really see you anyway. Think about what the world is asking you to do. It is asking you to care about things you do not care about, to be interested in conversations that bore you, to invest energy in relationships that drain you, to participate in social rituals that feel empty, to share your attention with 1,000 things that do not actually matter, to fragment yourself across so many external demands that you never have enough left over for your own inner life. And for what? For the illusion of belonging, for the comfort of fitting in, for the safety of not standing out. Freud would tell you that this is a form of repression. The world wants you to repress your true nature, your real interests, your actual depth, so that you can be manageable, so that you can be predictable, so that you can play your role in the social machinery without asking too many questions, or demanding too much space, or insisting on living according to your own internal compass. And most people do it. Most people sacrifice their inner world to maintain their place in the outer world. They learn to ignore their own thoughts and feelings and intuitions because paying attention to those things would make them too different, too difficult, too much. But you cannot do it. Or maybe you tried and it nearly destroyed you. Maybe you spent years trying to be what everyone else wanted you to be, trying to care about what everyone else cared about, trying to plug into a reality that never quite felt real, and it left you exhausted, depressed, disconnected from yourself, until finally you started withdrawing, started ignoring, started protecting your inner world by refusing to let the outer world consume all your energy. And here is what makes this an act of strength rather than weakness. It takes courage to disappoint people. It takes strength to say no to social demands. It takes force of will to protect your solitude when the entire culture is screaming at you to be more social, more connected, more engaged. The world does not want you to have a rich inner life. The world wants you to be externally focused, easily influenced, constantly consuming and responding and reacting. Because people who live primarily in their own minds are dangerous. They think for themselves. They question narratives. They see through performances. They cannot be easily manipulated because they are not getting their sense of reality from external sources. They are generating it internally, and that is threatening to every system that depends on conformity. So the world pathologizes your withdrawal. It calls you antisocial. It tells you something is wrong with you. It suggests you need to be fixed. But what if you do not need to be fixed? What if you need to be protected? What if your tendency to ignore the world is the only thing standing between you and total colonization by external demands? If you are recognizing yourself in this, if you have felt guilty for living so much in your own head, take a moment and like this video. Not because you need validation from me, but because you need validation from yourself. Because you need to acknowledge that your withdrawal is not weakness, it is wisdom. Let me pause here for a moment because I need to ask you something that matters. Have you ever felt like you are living two lives at once? The one everyone sees, where you smile and function and pretend everything is fine, and the one inside your head, where you are struggling, confused, doubting every choice you make? That split, that exhausting performance of being okay when you are not, it is something Freud understood deeply. And I want you to know something. You are not broken. You are not weak. You are human. And what you are feeling right now, this exact struggle you are carrying, someone else watching this video is feeling it too. They are sitting there thinking they are the only one, just like you might be thinking right now. So I am going to ask you to do something that might feel vulnerable, but it is important. Go down to the comments right now and type this exact phrase, I feel this. Just those 3 words, I feel this. You do not need to explain. You do not need to write your whole story. Just let those words be your voice today. Because when you do that, something powerful happens. The person scrolling through these comments, the one who feels completely alone in their pain, they are going to see your comment. And for the first time in maybe days, weeks, or months, they are going to realize they are not alone either. Your 3 words might be the thing that helps them breathe a little easier tonight. This is not just about engagement. This is about connection. This is about breaking the silence that keeps us isolated in our suffering. Freud built his entire life's work on one simple truth. We heal when we speak what has been hidden. So speak it now. Go to the comments, type I feel this, and know that by doing so, you are not just helping yourself. You are helping every single person who needs to know that what they feel is real, is valid, and is shared. Do it now. I will wait. Now let me tell you what Freud understood about the relationship between the inner world and the outer world. He understood that consciousness operates on multiple levels. There is the conscious mind, the part that is aware of immediate reality, that responds to external stimuli, that navigates social situations. Then there is the preconscious, the thoughts and memories that are not immediately present but can be easily accessed. And then there is the unconscious, the vast territory of repressed desires, forgotten traumas, unprocessed emotions, and primitive drives. Most people live almost entirely in their conscious mind. They respond to what is in front of them. They react to external demands. They let the world tell them what to think about, what to care about, what to feel. But people like you, people who naturally withdraw, who ignore external demands, who spend significant time in their own inner world, you are doing something most people never do. You are accessing the deeper levels. You are in dialogue with your unconscious. You are paying attention to material that most people keep buried because looking at it is uncomfortable, because processing it is difficult, because it does not fit neatly into the social performance that everyone else is maintaining. And this gives you something that most people do not have: depth, insight, the ability to see patterns that others miss, the capacity to understand motivations, including your own, at a level that goes beyond surface explanations. When you withdraw from the world, when you ignore external noise and turn your attention inward, you are not escaping reality. You are accessing a different layer of reality, a deeper layer, the layer where your real thoughts live, where your actual feelings exist, where your true desires are hidden. And you cannot access that layer if you are constantly responding to external demands. You cannot hear your own voice if you are always listening to everyone else's. You cannot know what you really think if you are always performing what you are supposed to think. So your withdrawal is not just self-preservation, it is self-discovery. It is the only way to find out who you actually are underneath all the expectations, all the conditioning, all the social programming that has been layered on top of your original nature. But here is where it gets complicated. Because while ignoring the world can be an act of strength, it can also become a defense mechanism. Freud would want you to ask, What are you protecting by withdrawing? Are you protecting your capacity for depth? Or are you protecting yourself from rejection? Are you preserving your inner world? Or are you avoiding the risk of being seen? Are you choosing solitude because it nourishes you? Or are you hiding because vulnerability feels too dangerous? Because there is a difference. There is a difference between someone who retreats into their inner world, because that is where their real life happens, where their creativity lives, where their authentic self can breathe, and someone who retreats because the outer world has hurt them so badly that withdrawal is the only way to feel safe. Both patterns can look the same from the outside. Both involve ignoring social demands, spending time alone, prioritizing the inner world over the outer world. But the motivation is different. And Freud would say that understanding your motivation is essential, because if your withdrawal is about protecting something valuable, that is strength. But if your withdrawal is about avoiding something painful, that is defense. And defenses, while necessary for survival, can also keep you stuck. They can prevent you from having experiences that might actually help you grow. They can isolate you in ways that are no longer serving you. So ask yourself honestly, when you ignore the world, what happens? Do you feel more like yourself? Do you feel energized, creative, alive? Do you use that solitude to think, to create, to process, to integrate? Or do you feel empty? Do you use that time to numb out, to distract yourself, to avoid feelings you do not want to face? Because one version of ignoring the world is an act of power. It is you saying, I will not let external noise drown out my inner voice. I will not sacrifice my depth for social acceptability. I will not perform a version of myself that is palatable to people who will never understand me anyway. That version is strength. That version is integrity. That version is you refusing to be colonized by a world that does not value what you value. But the other version? The version where you withdraw because you are afraid, because you have been hurt, because connection feels too risky, that version is understandable. That version is human. But that version is also a prison. That version keeps you safe, but it also keeps you small. It protects you from pain, but it also prevents you from joy. It gives you control, but it also gives you loneliness. You already know this, but we're not ready to understand ourselves alone. The human mind is vast, complex, and often frightening to explore without guidance. If this content is helping you see yourself more clearly, if these insights about Freud's work are bringing light to parts of yourself you've kept hidden, then consider subscribing to this channel. This is not just another psychology channel. This is a space where we explore the depths of human nature together, where we take the most profound concepts from psychoanalysis and make them accessible, practical, and deeply personal. Every video here is designed to help you understand not just theory, but yourself, your patterns, your fears, your desires, the invisible forces that have been shaping your choices without your awareness. When you subscribe, you are making a commitment to yourself. You are saying that you are ready to look deeper, to understand more, to stop running from the truth of who you are. And I promise you this, I will be here every week, bringing you insights that matter, explanations that actually make sense, and perspectives that can genuinely change how you see yourself and the world around you. This journey of self-understanding is not easy. Freud knew this. He spent his entire life mapping the human psyche precisely because he understood how lost we can feel inside our own minds. But you do not have to walk this path alone. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, become part of a community of people who have decided that understanding themselves is worth the discomfort, worth the effort, worth the time. Because at the end of the day, the most important relationship you will ever have is the one with yourself. And that relationship deserves your attention, your curiosity, and your courage. So subscribe now, and let's continue this exploration together. Your future self will thank you for taking this step today. Freud would also want you to understand something else. He would want you to understand that the ego, the part of your psyche that navigates reality and makes decisions, is constantly mediating between three forces. There is the id, your raw desires and impulses. There is the superego, your internalized sense of morality and judgment. And there is external reality, the demands and expectations of the world around you. And for most people, external reality is the loudest voice. They spend their whole lives responding to what the world wants from them. They never develop a strong internal compass because they are too busy orienting themselves according to external signals. But when you ignore the world, when you withdraw your attention from external demands, you force your ego to pay attention to the other forces. To the id, which knows what you really want even when that wanting is not socially acceptable. To the superego, which holds your values and ideals even when they conflict with what the world expects. And in that internal negotiation, in that dialogue between your desires and your values without the constant interference of external demands, you start to develop something rare. You start to develop an authentic self. Not a performed self, not a socially acceptable self, but a real self, a self that is yours. A self that emerged from your own inner process rather than being constructed to please others. And that is why ignoring the world can be your greatest act of strength. Because it is the only way to become yourself instead of a reflection of everyone else's expectations. It is the only way to develop ideas that are actually yours instead of just variations on what you have been taught. It is the only way to live according to your own values instead of values you absorbed without questioning. But it requires something that most people do not have. It requires the willingness to be different, to be misunderstood, to disappoint people who wanted you to be someone else, to lose relationships that were based on a version of you that was never real. And that is terrifying. That is why most people do not do it. They would rather betray themselves than disappoint others. They would rather live inauthentically than risk being rejected for who they really are. But you cannot do that anymore. Or maybe you tried and it almost killed you. Maybe you spent years performing, pretending, ignoring your own inner world to maintain your place in the outer world. And it left you hollow, it left you depressed, it left you wondering if life was worth living if this is all it was. So you started withdrawing, started ignoring, started protecting the one thing you could not afford to lose, which was your connection to yourself. Here is what I need you to understand as we close. Your withdrawal is not a failure. Your tendency to ignore the world is not evidence that you are broken or wrong or fundamentally incapable of normal human connection. It is evidence that you have something inside you that needs protection, something valuable, something rare, something that the world would consume if you let it. And protecting that thing, that inner world, that capacity for depth, that is not weakness. That is power. That is you recognizing what matters and refusing to sacrifice it for things that do not matter. Yes, there is a balance. Yes, you need some connection to external reality. Yes, you cannot live entirely in your own head without consequences. But the answer is not to abandon your inner world. The answer is not to force yourself to care about things you do not care about. The answer is not to become someone you are not, so that other people will be more comfortable with you. The answer is to find the few people, the rare people, who can meet you at your depth, who do not need you to perform, who can handle your withdrawal because they understand it, who value the same things you value, who live primarily in their inner world too. Those people exist. They are hard to find, but they exist. And one genuine connection with someone who sees you is worth more than 100 superficial connections with people who only know your mask. So let me ask you this as we close. What are you protecting by ignoring the world? What lives in your inner world that you refuse to let the outer world destroy? What thoughts, what feelings, what dreams, what questions are so important to you that you would rather be alone than lose them? And what would it look like to stop feeling guilty about that? What would it look like to own your withdrawal as a choice, as a strength, as an act of self-preservation rather than something to apologize for? Because you do not owe the world your attention. You do not owe people your presence if being present with them means abandoning yourself. You do not owe anyone an explanation for why you need solitude, why you need silence, why you need space to think and feel and process without the constant interference of external demands. Your inner world is not less real than the outer world. It is not less important. It is not less valuable. It is where your real life happens. It is where you actually live. And protecting that, choosing that, refusing to sacrifice that for social acceptability, that is not weakness. That is the strongest thing you can do. Share this video with someone who also lives primarily in their inner world, someone who has been made to feel guilty for ignoring the noise, someone who needs permission to stop performing and start protecting what actually matters. And tell them your withdrawal is not weakness. It is wisdom. It is strength. It is the only way to stay yourself in a world that wants everyone to be the same. Thank you for being here. Thank you for protecting your inner world. Thank you for refusing to let the noise drown out what is essential. The world needs people who can think deeply, who can feel authentically, who can stay connected to themselves even when it means disconnecting from everything else. Keep ignoring what does not matter. Keep protecting what does. That is not avoidance. That is power.